Hi everyone. Today we're going to take a look at how can we save some of that interest that we pay on a mortgage. We have taken a look at interest paid on mortgages and we see that that is a huge amount. And we want to lessen that burden on ourselves to pay that much interest and have as much money in our pockets as we can. And there are multiple different ways to do that. To save interest on a traditional mortgage, remember a traditional mortgage is our monthly payments for 25 years is our general traditional mortgage. We could shorten our amortization period. So we could pay it off in 20 years, 15 years, etc. Obviously, paying it off quicker means there's less interest that's going to be added in the long run. So obviously that's one method of saving. We could also, and we haven't talked a whole lot about this yet, but we also don't necessarily have to make payments monthly. We could make weekly payments, we could make bi-weekly payments. That just changes calculation-wise the number of payments made per year. And if you make a weekly payment, that payment that you're making this week, that interest is not sitting there for the rest of the month, or that owing money isn't sitting there for the rest of the month, meaning that you're saving a little bit of interest. So the sooner you can make the payments, the less the interest is going to be. So we can increase our frequency of payments, meaning weekly or bi-weekly, or if you can, when you're renewing a mortgage, you could make a lump sum payment. And sometimes even if you could do this in the middle of your mortgage, it would save you a lot of money. So let's say you won $5,000 in the lottery, putting that down on your mortgage, well, that's $5,000 that you owe that isn't sitting there for however many years you have left to pay off. So the interest on that amount would be saved. Now, not all banks will allow you to do that, but you have to figure out if you have these options when you negotiate your mortgage. So some of them will say you can make one lump sum over the term. Some will say you can pay a percentage of what you owe in a lump sum. And this is just because they're relying now on the interest you're paying on the mortgage as money that they have coming in. So they don't want to necessarily lose that. So let's take a look at an example. A mortgage of $250,000 is amortized over 25 years. And we're first going to take a look at what's the monthly payment here. And it's compounded. It is a Canadian mortgage, so it's compounded semi-annually. So starting with our 25 times 12 number of payments, interest rate is 6%. Our present value that we're receiving from the bank to help us pay for our home is $250,000. Payments, what we want to figure out. Future value is 0. We are going to make 12 payments a year, but interest is only going to be calculated twice a year. So going up and figuring out our payment, we notice that we get negative $1,599.52. So our monthly payment is $1,599.52. 2 decimal places with our dollar sign. And we're going to take a look at now what happens if we choose to make weekly payments rather than monthly payments. So again, N is going to be number of years. So we're taking 25 years to pay, but this time we're going to make 52 payments a year. Interest is the same. We have our 6%. Our present value is still our $250,000. Payment is what we want to figure out. Future value, 0. Now our payments per year are going to be 52, and our compounding per year still only going to be 2. So notice that in a weekly situation or a bi-weekly situation, the two things we're going to change here is number of payments and payments per year. So going up and determining our payment here, we notice that our payment here is going to be negative $368.42. So the weekly payment is $368.42. Now, we can't really compare those payments. Obviously, one is only for 1 week, the other is for monthly. So what we want to do is calculate the interest that we save by paying off the mortgage weekly rather than monthly. Well, we're going to have to do two different calculations here. So interest for monthly, we're going to calculate everything that we paid, which is $1,599.52 300 times. And then we're going to take off that $250,000 that was principal that we had to pay back as well. So we notice that we get $229,856 in interest paid if we pay monthly. For weekly, now our interest, we pay $368.42, but this time we're going to pay 1,800 payments, okay, because we're paying 52 times a year now. And again, we're going to take off our $250,000. So the interest that we pay in this case, $228,946. So finding the difference between those two, $229,856, subtracting $228,946 means that we pay, or we saved, about $910. So $910 interest is saved. And this is just making a weekly payment rather than a monthly payment. We're still paying off the same amount in the same amount of time, but we save close to $1,000 in interest by doing it that way. So if you have that option, that's a good way to save some interest as well. Now, the last one we want to take a look at is if we had an initial term of 5 years making monthly payments. So our original traditional mortgage that we looked at in Part A, and after 5 years, we're going to renew our mortgage. And we're going to put $15,000 down. So we're going to make a lump sum payment and pay $15,000. So first of all, what we have to do is figure out what is still owing. So 20 years worth of payments, and remember we took a look at this, how to do this a few lessons ago. So now 20 years worth of payments remaining that we're not going to pay right now. So interest was still 6%. Present value is what we want to figure out. What do we still owe after 20 years? So the payments that we're not going to make right now, $1,599.52. And as always with a mortgage, future value is 0. Payments per year are 12. Compounding per year, still 2. So solving for present value, we can see that there is still $224,592.24 owing. Okay, so this is what we're going to renew the mortgage at. Now, we're going to assume that we're going to pay off $15,000. So $224,592.24. So let's say we inherited $15,000. So taking that away from what we owe. So we're still going to have a mortgage of $209,592.24. So now we're going to figure out how many payments are still remaining. So we're going to assume that we're still going to use we're going to calculate our number of payments. So we're going to assume that our interest stays the same, interest rate. We're going to use our new principal. And we're going to stick with our payment. So let's say we still renewed at the same percentage, and even though we have a lower present value, we can afford to pay our $1599.52, so we're going to stick with that. And what we're going to determine then is how much longer is it going to take us to pay this off then. So what we're actually going to calculate here is if we stick with that same payment and pay off this principal, so going up and calculating our number, we notice that it's going to take us, rounded, 211 payments more to pay that off now. Well, that means that the 240 that we were going to pay means we're going to make 29 less payments. Now, that doesn't mean that that's all saved in interest, but we are going to pay that mortgage off 2 years and 5 months sooner. And we can calculate the interest that we saved in there, not a big deal, but we noticed that $15,000, even though that was only less than 10 payments, it took 29 payments off of there. So there are about 20 extra payments that we didn't have to make. So that is huge. And that comes from $15,000 not paying interest for 20 years. Okay, so you can see that there are some ways that we can save interest. Shortening the amortization period and lump sums are probably the biggest ones, but we can increase our payments, and obviously if we are renegotiating, we want to get the best percentage that we can. Okay, so you have some questions again to practice, and let me know